In 1987, a seasoned FBI agent named Mark Ellison vanished without a trace. No farewell, no leads, no signs of struggle, just gone. One moment, he was on an active case involving organized crime and missing federal funds. The next, his car was found abandoned near a remote highway outside Phoenix, Arizona. His badge, wallet, and briefcase, all left inside. The disappearance sent shockwaves through the bureau. Weeks turned into months, then years. His family held on to hope, but with no clues and no suspects, the case quietly went cold, filed away with dozens of others marked unsolved. Then, in 1991, 4 years later, storage unit in a small Nevada town went up for auction after its rent hadn't been paid in months. What the winning bidder found inside would reignite a federal investigation and unlock secrets no one was ready for. Among dusty boxes of office files and outdated electronics, there was something else, something chilling, something that tied directly back to Agent Ellison's last assignment. Was it a mistake that led to the storage unit being forgotten, or had someone been hiding it in plain sight all along? As investigators pieced together what they found, the truth behind the agent's disappearance slowly began to unfold. But the deeper they dug, the more dangerous the story became. What was discovered in that unit stunned even seasoned federal agents and raised more questions than answers. Stay with me, because what comes next will change how you see this entire case. Want me to dive straight into the storage unit discovery, or peel back Mark Ellison's final assignment first? Mark Ellison wasn't just any FBI agent. He was known inside the bureau as a sharp investigator with a reputation for going the extra mile, especially when it came to white-collar crime and internal corruption. In the months before he vanished, Ellison had been quietly working on a sensitive case involving a suspected money laundering ring. Sources say it may have tied back to government contractors and even a few high-ranking officials. He didn't talk much about the details, not even to his closest colleagues, but those around him said he'd been more tense than usual. He'd mentioned he felt like he was being followed. A few coworkers brushed it off as job stress until he disappeared. At the time, no hard evidence was found. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no sign of a struggle. But now, years later, the contents of that forgotten storage unit were forcing investigators to re-examine everything. Inside one of the boxes, they found a locked metal case, old, dented, and strangely out of place. And behind a false wall in the back of the unit, there was a stack of tapes. FBI issued, labeled with dates that lined up eerily with Ellison's final weeks on the case. Most were blank, worn out from age. But one had been preserved in a sealed envelope, marked with his handwriting. As forensic teams began digging into what was on that tape, strange connections started popping up: names, places, documents, and one name kept surfacing. A name kept surfacing, a name that had never been mentioned in the original case files. Want to dig into what was on the recovered tape, or uncover who this mystery name in the files might really be? The tape started with nothing but static. Then a voice, low, calm, and definitely Mark Ellison's, began to speak. He didn't sound panicked, but you could tell he was under pressure. He mentioned names no one had seen connected to the case before. One in particular stood out: Gerald Knox. At the time, Knox was just a mid-level financial consultant with ties to defense contracts. But digging deeper, investigators found something strange. Knox had disappeared too. Just 3 weeks. After Mark, no missing person report, no questions asked. It was like he had never existed. As agents reopened the old files, they realized there were gaps: documents that had been removed, pages blacked out, and leads that were never followed. Some of the people Ellison had interviewed had either left the country or stopped responding to contact entirely. One even died in what was ruled an accidental fire. But now, those patterns seemed anything but accidental. Meanwhile, Kelly's son's sister, Linda, who had been quietly fighting to keep his case alive for years, started getting anonymous phone calls. No words, just silence, and then a hang-up. Every time, just after sunset. She reported them, but they couldn't be traced. Still, it was clear someone didn't want the past dug up again. And in the tape's final minutes, Ellison said something cryptic: if this ever gets found, tell them to look under Project Lantern. That's where it starts. No record of Project Lantern existed in any federal archive. At least, not officially, should we follow Linda's trail or uncover what Project Lantern really is. By the time Linda handed the tape over to the FBI, word of Project Lantern had already begun circulating quietly among a few trusted agents. None of them had ever heard of it before, not in official training, not in any internal files. That was the first red flag. A deeper search into restricted archives finally turned up a reference in a decades-old memo, buried beneath layers of declassified material. It was a single line, redacted almost entirely, except for 2 words: Lantern and assets. No location, no date. Just enough to confirm it existed and that someone had worked hard to erase it. At the same time, agents started retracing Mark Ellison's final steps using old surveillance logs and badge activity. Shockingly, it showed that the night before he vanished, he accessed a federal data center under a different agent's credentials. That agent had died 2 years prior in a car crash. Somehow, Mark had bypassed multiple layers of security and no one noticed until now. Then something strange happened. 2 of the original agents assigned to Mark's disappearance, who had long since retired, refused to speak on record. One of them sent a one-line message through an encrypted channel: "Don't trust internal." The next day, he was found, unconscious in his home. No sign of forced entry. With the recovered tape, missing records, and this hidden project pointing in the same direction, pressure mounted. A shadow operation was clearly at play, but who was running it? And what had Mark Ellison really discovered just before he disappeared? Should we follow the data center break-in or dig deeper into Project Lantern's origin? Just when it seemed the trail was heating up, a second unexpected break shattered the case wide open. An anonymous package arrived at Linda's home. No return address, just a manila envelope with a flash drive and a handwritten note that read, "He wasn't working alone." What was on that drive stunned both Linda and the agents assigned to the reopened investigation. It contained raw, unedited footage of a hidden camera clearly from inside a federal office. The video showed Mark Ellison sitting across from a woman who'd never been connected to the case before, Special Agent Dana Mercer. Mercer had a clean record. She had retired 2 years after Ellison's disappearance and now lived off the grid in northern Idaho. But the footage showed her and Mark discussing extraction protocols, burner IDs, and something referred to as a secondary ledger, hidden database allegedly containing names of federal employees on private payrolls. Mercer warned Mark to stay quiet and walk away. He didn't. The revelation added a chilling new layer. Ellison may have planned his own disappearance, but if he did, why leave the tape behind? And why did the storage unit still hold so much evidence? Unless someone else planted it there on purpose. Someone who wanted it to be found now. With this new footage and the name Dana Mercer back in the mix, investigators were forced to consider a dangerous question: was Ellison really a victim? Or was he playing both sides? Should we chase Agent Mercer's hidden past or uncover what's inside the secondary ledger? Federal agents tracked down Dana Mercer in a remote mountain town, living under a different name. She didn't resist when they showed up, almost like she'd been expecting them. During the interrogation, Mercer finally broke her silence. She confirmed what many feared: Project Lantern had been a covert operation used to reroute federal funds into private black budget programs. High-ranking Officials, including people still active in government, had their names tied to that secondary ledger. Mark Ellison had stumbled onto it by accident, then went deeper when he realized someone inside the bureau was trying to bury the trail. The night before, he vanished. Mercer said Mark made a choice: disappear or be erased. With her help, he faked his own disappearance using the identity of a dead agent. The storage unit planted. The tapes left intentionally. It was all a long game to make sure the evidence would eventually surface just not too soon. Mark knew timing was everything, Mercer said. He needed the right people to find it. But here's the twist. Just as agents were preparing a warrant to retrieve the full ledger and make arrests, the digital trail went dark. The drive holding the ledger, gone, wiped clean. Whoever was funding Project Lantern had been watching the whole time. And as for Mark Ellison, Mercer refused to say. Only this: he's not missing, he's watching. To this day, no one knows where Mark is or who got to the ledger first. Want me to explore possible real-world cases like this? Or how deep cover operations stay hidden for decades? In the months following Dana Mercer's confession, internal investigations were launched quietly within the Bureau. Several officials were placed on administrative leave, but no public charges were ever filed. The agency officially denied any knowledge of Project Lantern, and the case was once again sealed, this time under national security. Linda Ellison never heard from her bro.